Now, I am pleased to present this year's student speaker, George Hayward.
I want to begin by thanking my parents, who over the last 4 years were here for me whenever I needed them, and also when I didn't. I want to thank my mother, Jennifer, who is my rock. I want to thank Harvard, which over the last 4 years has become more than a school and more than a home. I want to thank the professors, the staff, and the administration that made Harvard who and what it is today. I must admit, today graduation is bittersweet for me. I know one graduate who tried so hard to be here today but just couldn't make it. 42 years ago, my father awaited his commencement from the law school. He was young and optimistic, just like many of us today. He looked out not only over Tercentenary Theater, but over the course of his life ahead. He had high hopes, but for him, his life didn't turn out as planned. And these past 4 years, when things got really hard for him, we used to sit together and we'd reflect on Harvard. He was here in the turbulent 60s in the class of 1969, and as a member of the class of 2011, I thought I too had seen some incredible times. He would talk about the lessons that he learned and the lessons that we were learning. He'd reminisce about the extended Cambridge winners and those John Harvard statue tourists. I confirmed that both were still here. And I remember sitting in his hospital room, hoping against hope that he'd make it to one more commencement. But he's not here today. Yet there was a fight in him, which came from many things, but especially Harvard, he said. When he could no longer stand, he was happy to sit. When he could no longer sit, he was happy to hold a loving hand. He said if he didn't have years, he had months. And when he didn't have months, he had days. And when he didn't have days, he had this moment. And I think at Harvard, beyond grades, beyond jobs, beyond clubs, you learn that things don't always go as planned, that dreams don't always happen as realized or intended. Harvard is full of success and honor, as we've seen today, but equally important are the failures that teach us humility. My father taught me that character is forged not by the depths of defeat, but by the ferocity with which we crawl back. You know, in these past 4 years, we've seen things thought impossible just 5 years ago. The election of a black president, the collapse of the capital markets, the capture of Osama bin Laden, Harvard's adoption of a normal academic schedule. And we've learned a great deal by living through it. Reminds me of one of my favorite class of 2011 stories. It was our first semester in the yard. We were crammed there. It was finals period. The stress, palpable. And then an email went out over the list. I believe it said, snowball fight in the yard. And at first there was 10 people, then 100, then maybe 300. One student even brought a shovel. He called it his force multiplier. And I remember looking out into the dark and otherwise quiet yard with snowball fights, frolic, and screams in every direction, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to get through this Chinese midterm, but somehow we're going to make it together. So just as in life, we learned as much by getting through Harvard itself as by attending any class. And it's worth noting that many of the people who made today possible can't be here today. It's not just my father. We've had family members, staff, professors, reverends, and administrators who aren't here today. Yet the strength of the Harvard community and this education is that it's more than the here and now. It's more than letters and numbers, more than credits and prerequisites. Harvard stands for an idea, the idea of working hard, of questioning the status quo, of taking risks, the idea that regardless of financial background or cultural background, you can come here and be equal, the idea that you're here for a snapshot in time, as my father knew all too well, but you leave here with the potential to make a difference. And that's what my father told me, and that's why I believe he's here today. This afternoon, we begin our first day as alums, and this year my father lived his last. But as he looked back on it all, he told me something, and that's what I'm here to say. That Harvard has prepared us, and only life will tell our stories. Yet, we can emerge triumphant if we hold on to the optimism of this moment, the drive that it took to get through this place, and the courage to continue to learn and grow. Because if Harvard's taught me one thing, as it taught my father, it is that life is not defined by adversity, but courage in the face of it. Thank you very much.